I'll come to a point where I'll say, well, does it need rework, or is it acceptable? And I'm always trying to keep in mind the overview. Okay, if something isn't exactly to the plan, or it doesn't look exactly like the prototype, I have a decision. Am I going to start over on this and maybe forego something else? Is this a showstopper? Just so I try to limit myself from the outset, just so that I'm not, endlessly tearing apart things and starting over and all that. Anyway, that's just one of the things that helps me. And the other is, like a big issue for me is if you glance at something and it just jumps out at you, wow, that's just not right. The wings are crooked, or the tail isn't square, or the landing gear doesn't line up one way or the other. It's crooked. To me, that stops you in your tracks. You look at something, you spot that, and it's like, well, I can't have that. That's got to be reworked. Versus something of a detail, something small, less easy to notice, doesn't stop you in your tracks. Then, I might think about letting that go. We'll get that one next time, type of a thing. Where I see, if I had put this on before I put that part together, this might not have happened, type of thing. And so I'll make a mental note of that and say, well, the next time I do this, I'll do it this way instead of that way. And so that's helpful. That's actually how I feel like that's how I've gotten here from where I started. Wasn't so much stopping what I was doing on the existing project, but rather making mental notes as I went along and determining the better path for the next project, the next opportunity. If that makes sense. Maybe that's more helpful than constantly stopping and doing stuff over and over and over. Anyway, so we got our blanks, and I'm just rambling. So now I need to find my my big sander, and I think it's outside. Hang on, I'll be right back. Yeah, here we go. All right, so let's start with one. So as I said, the next phase here is to get our taper, and what I'm going to do is sand it like this and just work down to a taper. I might put coarser sandpaper on this block. I think this is maybe also 100 grit. Might want to go as like an 80 grit, or even a 60. So, but we'll get this going, and we'll get our taper, the face side also, face of our blade, and the back side of our blade. And the way I do it to try to keep it even is I just count the strokes. So I probably do 20 and 20, something like that, and until we start to see. Now remember, I don't want to go all the way skinny to the tip because I'm still going to be sanding the faces, right? You can see we're beginning to get our taper here. So I don't want to go all the way to, the final thickness here in this phase, because I'm still going to be shaping these blades, and as I'm doing that, that's pulling material away. So if I were to go straight to my taper here, what it ideally should be, and then I start doing this to get our hollow and then sanding across the face, I'm going to be reducing the length of this blade, and I'm going to be reducing it into where it's wider here. So then I'll have to go back to tapering this way, get back to this profile, and then my blade is short. And then when I put the prop on, I may be shorter on one side than the other, and then we'll have to do all kinds of stuff to our blade, or even start over which we just talked about. So always keep in mind that, you know, at each phase of this, it's not the final stage of, this is not the final, I don't want to go to my final destination here because I've got more shaping and sanding to do. I just want to get this going and get it headed in that direction with the taper. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 20. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you see, by keeping a count, we're going to have relative symmetry, right? And I'm probably going to stop here for now because we can always go back to tapering. And I'm going to begin shaping the leading edge and creating the knife edge here. And again, we're not going to go to our final destination right here off the bat. We're going to begin the process of shaping the front edge and begin the process of knife edging our trailing edge. And then we're going to begin the process of hollowing and begin the process of shaping our faces. And then after our first pass at each of those steps, we'll assess our values. So take a look at our blade again, see if it's, you know, within the parameter. And at that point we'll determine, okay, are we close enough on the knife edge? We can slow down on the knife edge, focus more on our leading edge. We need more hollow, let's focus on our hollow. More radius on the face, okay, and then we reassess our blade again. And in that way we prevent ourselves from going too far in any one direction, right? We want to have a balanced approach to shaping the propeller blade, so that we end up with all of the shaping done at a correct, you know, parameters, and our blade is in the right place. Our blade is the right shape at the end of all that. So, you know, we also have to do some filling here. There'll be sanding with the filling. There'll be sanding with the sealer as we remove the wood grain divots and get this into a smooth shape. We want it to look like a piece of polished aluminum when we're done. So that'll be a combination of the sanding, filling, sealing, and painting to get us to what looks like a metal blade. And hopefully we'll get pretty close to that. We've done it before. We should be able to do it again. All right, so I'm done with the heavy sander. I don't need the big block anymore. The rest of this can be done this way. Okay, so which is the face and which is the tail of our blade? I'm going to call the back side where the center line is, I'm going to call that the back side of our blade. Since the blade is symmetrical on its leading edge to its trailing edge, in other words, these two lines are pretty much the same. If they were different, some blades it's more of a straight line here and kind of a cutout, kind of an arch on the back. But these rapier type blades, these sword shaped blades, are more symmetrical, and so it really doesn't, I can call either edge right now, I can call either edge the leading edge. And in this case, like I said, I'm gonna have the datum line, the center line, be on the back. So we're gonna start just rounding our leading edge. And again, we wanna rocker this on here. We're not sanding straight like this because that'll remove our detailed, our profile edge here, and our radius leading edge. So we just want to get that hard edge broken and round the front of this blade. We'll do that on obviously on the front and the back of our blade, and we want to hold to our profile template shape. Essentially, when they're machining these blades out of metal, this is really what they're doing. Same thing. The blank, the shape of the blank is important, and that's why you make a template. And then you follow that line as you're shaping, as you're removing material. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to hold the shape of the blank as much as I can while just removing the unwanted material. Right? So we get kind of a leading edge. Again, this is This is just the rough beginning. And then as we go on about our business now, we're going to knife edge our trailing edge. I want that to be a knife edge. I know I said I was done with the big sanding block, but I'm not. All right, we're gonna hold this off the end here and really taper the back side of this down. And again, I'm gonna do our 20 and 20 rule here in a minute. Just want to make sure we get this shape. Get it tapered. Pulling the material off of here pretty well with this grit, so I'm going to stay with it. Alright, so you see I'm tilting this as far toward that knife edge, the trailing edge, as I can while I'm sanding here. Keep in mind we're going to be hollowing this out and removing a lot of this extra stuff. So we'll go now switch to the face, and this is less curled on this side, I think. So begin working on the knife edge from this side on the face of the blade. And again, we're going to rocker that a little bit because we want to get to the tip and make sure we're uniform, cutting our wedge pretty uniformly. So yeah, this is a process. I don't want the blade to bow, that's why I'm trying to hold it at the base, the center, and the tip simultaneously. It makes for interesting hand cramps. The older I get, the more I get those. Joys of aging. But anyway, I digress. This is the method for shaping our blade, getting our knife edge going. Okay, so that's probably a good enough start, I think. And we can do the rest of it here. Get back into that line. Don't want to snap the blade in this phase of the shaping. It's happened once or twice. Balsa is really strong. It's considered a hardwood even though it's really light, which is kind of funny, but so it can take a lot of this stress that I'm putting on it as I flex it here to get it sanded. See, so we've got our leading edge over here. And we've got our what's becoming our knife edge on the back side. And in a minute I'll show you, well, let's do a little bit of hollowing now. Alright. It's just the beginning. You see, this is not going to be determinative. This is our attachment point. What I'm going to eventually shoot for here is from about here down, we're going to start just rounding this at some point, almost matching this cylindrical shape. That's ideal. So as soon as we begin and I get to the point where we're feeling that, I'll just begin to roughly carve that into a circle, and then using sandpaper we'll make that as round as we can before attaching it to the hub. So, all right. This dowel I think is 3/4 diameter. That's what I use. Here's the face of our blade. Here's our datum line that we're going to call that the back of our blade. So you just want to center the sandpaper on there, maybe lean a little bit more toward the trailing edge since we're trying to establish a knife edge there. And you're just going to do this for a little while. Da-da-da-da-da-da. As long as it takes. And we begin to get this hollowed out. Again, we want to be more towards the trailing edge than the leading edge when we do this. And we're just going to carve, what I call carving, rough sanding, and getting this. And here I am right on the edge, and then back to the middle, and then on the edge, middle of the blade, edge, and we're going to begin to see this going concave, getting hollowed out. All the way down to the root, down to the base of the blade. Again, keeping in mind we are going to round this, but we don't want any irregularity at the base of the blade. We want to try and maintain that hollow all the way down. Hollow. Okay. So now you begin to see we're hollowing that out. And again, we need to bring it more toward the trailing edge here. Keep thinking I should get a larger diameter dowel for this, but if I, move it in and out, run the center and then run the trailing edge, run it back through the center, oops, I get to where I want to be. So that's why I haven't actually done that. I haven't changed. I'm still using 3/4. Right, so we're just going to work that a little bit, get that hollowed out. Maybe wondering about all this dust. I have a dust buster. We'll put it to work in a minute here. Normally I do the sanding outside as well. Here we are because of the GoPro situation. I don't want to fiddle with the camera again. So we're getting that hollowed. So the next thing is the face of our blade. Pardon me. The face of the blade needs to be rounded out. So, and on that, we want to get kind of this effect. We want to round